my earliest recollection of death, inverted commas, when I was about 9, my grandfather came to live with us in Quarrybunk, where I come from, and he was 90, and he lived 2 years with us, and then one night died in bed. So the earliest recollection I have is to see my grandfather dead in bed, which was, for a 9-year-old, 10-year-old as I was then, was a difficult thing, but also to see the effect it had on my mother, because it was her dad. Subsequently, we had to move because she couldn't face the prospect of walking in the front every day, and she could still see the picture of my granddad dead in bed. So we had to move, which was a cataclysmic experience for me, because we moved about 5 miles away. I stayed at the same school, but I lost all my mates. In 1982, my sister passed. She had a brain tumour, and that was the eventual diagnosis. And when she was quite emaciated, and when they operated on her, she started to give birth. She was so thin that nobody knew she was pregnant. Subsequently, the baby lasted a fortnight before it passed, and then my sister passed. And then in 2002, and my wife, who was 54, she passed, having had multiple sclerosis, which was a tortuous process for her. It was diagnosed about 1998, although we suspect she'd lived with it for a little longer than that. And it was the rapid progressive condition which just stays, and eventually they pass. So there's an awful lot of experience there, and in the work that I've done subsequently over the last 13 to 14 years with Alzheimer's and dementia patients, through football and through working at the museum and working with groups in the local community and doing chats, it's something that you have to face, because one week the people are there in the group and they seem to be hale and hearty, and the next week they've gone. Why is it important? Because at the end of the day, it's something, I know it seems to have been, when I was a kid and you overheard your parents talking about people who died and death and this, that and the other, it seemed to be a bit of a taboo subject. But talking about it, you have to take the view that that is a comfort, both to the people who will live on and the people who will pass. There has to be an understanding and a meeting point where everybody knows what everybody needs to do, what everybody has to face, and that, I think, makes the process, if it that a little easier. If you're able to talk about something, it makes things a little easier, I think. When my wife passed at the age of 54, and we knew that there was a limited period of time, what I did, because she was in a care home then, I took my children away, who were 18 and 21 respectively, took my children away for a week so that we could actually talk about what was happening and what was going to happen, the impact it might have on their lives, and more importantly, to ask them how they feel about the situation, because sometimes that's what you need to know as well, the people who are going to be affected. When my grandfather passed, my mother never talked about it. I'm sure that she talked about it a little more. She might have dealt with it a little more. But it's important that everybody has an understanding of what's going on, and you understand people and how they feel, because we're a little selfish, aren't we? We don't want these people to go, and sometimes because of their suffering, it might be, as people say, it's the best thing that could happen, but we need to tell them before they go that we love them. We need to tell them that we shall never forget them. We need to tell them that they'll always be there. I always say at the end of the day, when people pass, you have to be thankful for what you've got, more than what you've lost, but be thankful for what you've had. And if you want to see them, all you got to do is close your eyes and picture them at their best in a situation which was one of the best. It might be a holiday, it might be going to a football match or a concert. Keep that in your mind, and anytime you want to see them, you just see them. But it's important, like everything else in life, to talk about it, to prepare. And if you prepare, it's still a big blow. But I joke and say that I want my funeral before I die because I want to see what people say about me. Good, bad, or indifferent, Stephen. Because you know, and I know, you go to funerals, and I've spoken at funerals for people, and they give all these plaudits, but you think, did they tell the people while they were still alive? Did you tell your dad while you're still alive that you love him and that he's been great? Did you tell your mom that you love her and you couldn't have done without her? Did you tell your partner or your spouse or your daughter or your son how you really felt about him? Because if you can do that, then I'm sure for them it makes their passing a little easier because they know they've been appreciated and they know that the memory will live on. We're all immortal because memories live on. You know, it's my life and I'll live it how I want. It's my death, and if I'm having a funeral, I want to plan it. You know, I want to plan it. And really, you know, we've come to a situation now where a century ago, or even 50 years ago, 40 years ago, you know, some of the things that happened at funerals now, the people then would be going bonkers. They'd think it's sacrilegious and almost blasphemous sometimes. The concept of having a pop song at a funeral as opposed to a hymn would be awful for people to contemplate years and years ago. But now I'm not saying anything goes, yeah, but it's important because it's your funeral. You want to go out with a celebration of your life, and you want to let people know, I think, what sort of character you were, and you want them, if it's the right word, to enjoy the funeral and not to make it too mournful. Mourn the loss, but be grateful for what you had. I had a neighbour over the road who passed. He wasn't particularly religious, yeah, and when the curtains drew at the cremation and they were about to burn the coffin, his instruction was that he should play Fire by Arthur Brown. Sense of humour. When my mother passed, I chose Run Rabbit Run by Flanagan and Allen, which is a song that I remember that she used to sing to me. She hadn't planned her funeral, but I know that she would have loved that. My aunt is in her 90s, God blessed, and it's all sorted and planned. It cuts down the hassle for the living, you know. It cuts down any arguments about, I think we should have this hymn or that hymn or this song or that passage, you know. And it's a matter of really being organised so that the day goes well. You go to the funeral and then you think, oh, blimey, you know, I should start thinking about mine. I don't think there's any problem with talking about it, even before there's a problem, if you know what I mean. If your health's fine and you're compos mentis and you're in a situation where you can have a laugh and joke about it and say, when argue. I mean, some people say, I don't bother what they play when I'm dead because I won't know any road, you know, and they can do anything with my body. I ain't bothered because I won't know. But I think when you're in the right mood and you can see it in a different light, then that's probably the point to talk about it. I think it's very sad when you come to the point when you're told it's a terminal illness, and that really is the prompt for you to start talking about it. Because at that point, people are so upset by the fact that they're going to face the prospect of losing you that, you know, it becomes a very dark subject to talk about the funeral. So when you're not ill, as I've said earlier, you know, I want my funeral before I die, so I can plan it properly and I know what people say about me, good, bad, or indifferent.